Hello, everybody. Welcome to Farming Simulator 17, the Lone Oak map, a wonderful map created by my friend Bullet Bill of a farm that I worked on in my growing up years. We are in the middle of wheat harvest, and actually, last episode we didn't spend much time here in the wheat fields. In the earlier episode we did. The combine is going away. We have Horseplay working on it. I'm looking at my weather indicator up there. We have almost 4 hours, or basically 4 hours. There'll be a rain fade to get the harvest done, which I'm hoping we can do, and then hopefully take the straw off. It may be a little nip and tuck, but we'll see. In the last episode, we one of the things I was talking about as a special part of grass seed harvest and growing is that the resultant product is run through a grass seed cleaner. Lone Oak as a farm was large enough that they were able to have their own facility on site. There was a lot of farms out on the hills that did, so a lot of their neighbors also had their own facility. It's really kind of interesting. I think I started commenting on this in the last video and then got a little distracted. A lot of farmers, maybe most of them, they grow the commodity and that's pretty much what they do. And then they take it to someone else that adds value to it, processes it further, turns it into something for the consumer. But most farms, I think, stick with the basic commodity. But then there are some farms that start to become vertically integrated, like any other professional business, and they start handling other facets of the production, and they become not only farmers, but also manufacturers in a sense, or processors of some kind. And this is a form of on-farm processing, seed cleaning. And other farmers, including one in the area, I believe, take it even further beyond this to where they start having their own brands of seed. They start marketing it themselves under their own brand. They maybe have their own blend. And so they handle that aspect of it as well as all the production. So they try to take the whole thing from farm to fork. I think they refer to that, although in this case here it isn't going to a table to the fork. From farm to yard, maybe, if so it's planting someone's yard. But in the last video, we kind of went over the basic outline of their seed warehouse. And like I mentioned then, it's changed a lot over the years. And I got a number of pictures that show it at different time eras. I don't know if I want to bore everybody in seeing those. Kind of like I've said before, this kind of stuff just doesn't bore me. It fascinates me to no end. I spent a lot of time in this cleaner. So I really have a fondness for the work that we did in there. I mean, I was in terrific shape back then because it was a lot of manual labor. And I did in the last video, I mentioned kind of how the seed, came from these bulk bins to get to the seed cleaner. And so I said, like, when the bin was full and you first opened the door, it would just tumble out, which made it really easy. It would just tumble on out and it would come into this floor auger and get loaded up here. But gravity only did so much of the job. There came a point where you had to open the door all the way and you had to dig in with this hand scoop that you would push by hand. And I think I still remember it was about 45 to 50 scoops would fill the hopper that was in here. And we're not talking a ton of seed really. So multiple times through the day when the thing emptied out, you had to return back over here and scoop after scoop by hand to get them into this floor auger to get them in there. Nowadays, I mean, they handle a whole lot more. I mean, they still have these in here in bulk, but I've noticed they've beat a hole in here in the end of the building, I think both sides, so they can come in here with a forklift so they can scoop it out and dump it into the pit. I don't know that they're able to creep all the way into these. This one here, I'm not sure they use anymore. But there's just less hand labor, which is helpful to the process. Um, Including on the clean seed end, there's less hand labor. They since have opened it up here. The clean seed chute, back when I worked on it, was over here. We filled all the bags here. In later years, I think they put it in the middle. They've had it over here before. And now, I mean, the times I go in there, they're no longer filling sacks. Well, let me take that back. They're filling a sack, but it's a massive sack that takes up the whole a pallet. And these are standard size pallets, and I don't know if it's 3, 4 feet tall, but a big batch of a seed. In the old days, I think we would typically fill a pallet, what was it, 6 layers? There'd be 5 per layer, so 30 bags, and at 50 pounds a piece, 1,500 pounds per pallet. And let me tell you that that is some weight. I once had a pallet set down on my foot. I was in there with someone else, and he came in and set a pallet down. He didn't realize it was going on my foot, and let me tell you, that stood me up in a hurry. And of course, he turned off the stupid forklift, and so I sat there in pain, trying not to utter bad words, shall we say, until he was able to get it up and off my foot. And fortunately, nothing was broken. But it sure wouldn't take much to break something. Back in the day, the office, if you will, was kind of in this little room, and uh, in later years, they added a staircase over here, and they added another office kind of up on top of it. This was kind of just the entryway, and then I think they had their computers and stuff up here, did bookwork and whatnot up there. But back in the day, they only had this. I don't know where they did their bookwork. I never saw any of it being done in here. So and all concrete. Oh yeah, and then we have the loading dock over here. Maybe before I continue, I better go check on our harvest crew. Yep, it appears they are doing what they do. So we'll go back to the diagram. There was a loading dock out here, concrete. Whenever we removed clean seed from the warehouse, there'd be a truck that would back up here and open up the end, and one at a time we would take the pallets over here. But it wasn't until many years later that we would take it from the forklift and literally stack the pallet on the truck, a flatbed. You'd be surprised at the number of trucks that we filled that were not flatbeds at all, but were just a regular van of seed, and just more labor. And we would take in there a pallet at a time. We would manually unload the pallet and stack all the bags inside the semi-trailer, take it out, stack the pallet, go in and get another one. Part of it may have been, all of these pallets belonged to Lone Oak. They were all stenciled. So it's always kind of a pain to trade pallets. And when you send your pallets away to this with someone else, you kind of wonder if they're ever going to come back. And so that may have been part of it too. But there was many a year we saw nothing but van after van after van come in, the big 18-wheeler vans, that would be filled up with the seed. In more recent years, I see more. I don't know what they're called. Someone that's good at trucking maybe could say they're like curtain trailers. Is that the technical term? They're basically a flatbed, but they have a covering or a shroud over them, if you will, to where you can open the curtains on the side, and so you can stack the pallets kind of coming from the side, and then you just pull the curtain down, so it kind of has the appearance of a van, but it's really curtains on there. And so those were obviously easier to load because you could load straight up, with a forklift, and didn't have to manually unload all the bags and whatnot. But that's just what we did back in the day. And when there wasn't a truck there, and it wasn't every day that we had someone coming for clean seed, of course, we would have what was called a screenings trailer sitting here. Just a simple trailer to hold bulk material. I think in the last video I mentioned we would have a box in here, a plywood pallet box, if you will, and we would dump all the screenings and other extraneous items from the cleaner in there. And then we would just take it with a forklift out here. It had a hatch underneath, and we would unload it into the screenings trailer. When the screenings were full, and I apologize, I don't have many pictures of all this. For a number of years, my uncles took it to a place. I mean, basically, this is their trash, right? There's nothing they can do with it. Years and years and years ago, they would dump it in a hole somewhere on the property. They would light a match and burn it. And the trouble with burning screenings is they burn very slowly, and you could potentially cause yourself a problem out there if they were burning at the wrong time of year. And so it just, and plus it stinks to the high heaven, when you burn that stuff and then get water in it and there's some rot. And so kind of during the years when I was working up there, my uncles tried something different and they hauled the screenings to a pellet mill. Apparently, I don't know if it went for cattle or just what animal would eat the pellets. They took the screenings, converted them into an animal food. And so I remember taking a load or two down there, just hauling it in. But now in more recent times, I'd have to ask them what they do. Really, they've moved it. They no longer have it in here. They have a bunker. Now, back in the day, we didn't have this bunker. This was just wide open space out here on the hill. There was a couple massive cyclone fans here to pull dust out of the cleaner. I kind of have this circle. There was actually several of these, and there was a whole network of dust handling in here just to try to keep it as clean as possible in here. I mentioned in the last one that there was tons of dust, when you were unloading seed into these bins and you basically had to wear a mask. Truth be told, the entire time I spent in the cleaner, I probably should have wore a mask. It most of the time you couldn't see the dust, but I think that's just kind of lulling you to sleep. There really was dust there. You just didn't happen to see it. And I know some others that worked in there, even though it's uncomfortable, they wore a mask and their lungs, their sinuses are probably in a whole lot better shape than mine are, from years and years of doing that. But otherwise, I mean, they did a fair job of keeping some of that out. They tried to have, I wouldn't call it a hose. It was all tin work. These fans were sucking air out of the building. And so, for example, there'd be a tube that came over and is right over the top of this pit. You had to have it close enough so that it would slurp up the dust, but you didn't want it to slurp up any of your seed. If any of the seed got close to it, it would take it right out there and blow it all outside and you would lose it. And that was one. There'd be other machines where they knew there'd be a particular amount of dust coming off of them, that they would have a tube attached to one of these cyclones that would take dust out. And for a while, they even had dust settling units in here where it would blow it in and then the dust would settle kind of over time. Like I say, there's been tons of changes in this area. But I'm pretty sure they still do have dust handling. But in later years, they built this bunker, and this was after I left, to basically warehouse all the screenings. And maybe warehouse is a wrong term. It's a bunker, it accumulates it, and when it's full, they obviously need to offload it and take it somewhere. Let's go check on our combine. Oh, yes. Oh, that looks plenty close, doesn't it? I think I had specified it, yet every time I touch this thing, I regret it. I think the auto was 5 meters, which just gets it inside here, but when it's on the slope over here, well, we're not much on the slope, so maybe 5 meters is going to work a little better. So back over here on our diagram, I think, yeah, the screenings would accumulate in here, and I really don't know what they do with their screenings anymore. It's possible they load it up in a trailer and they take it out. I know on part of the farm it's a slope that they had over there where they weren't doing anything with it, kind of the end of the pasture. For all I know, the cattle may munch on it too when you dump screenings out there. I think they would just dump pile after pile. And then over time, just like any other grass or product or what have you, it would compost and rot kind of over time. And it's just where they would dump their seed. And like I say, it stinks horribly out there, but eventually it disappears, gets incorporated into the soil, and gets taken care of that way. Um, the thing I wonder about, though, is I don't know if they burn it for one, and I don't know if they put their weeds out here because, and I think that was part of it too. When you put all the weeds and screening in a trailer, then you haul it someplace else and they turn it into pellets. Well, they're cooking it, they're ruining the germ on those weeds, so they never again would cause any problems. But I'm not so sure. I'd be curious to know. I'd have to ask them sometime if the weed seeds end up in this bunker And if they just take that and dump it back out on the ground, does that cause them any weed problems out there? And maybe it doesn't. I think everybody knows the composting process, when that happens, it cooks the stuffing out of it. So maybe I've just answered my own question. Even if they do take it out there, perhaps it all gets cooked out sufficient that the weeds aren't a problem. Um, I'm just trying to think of any other comments I should make on this page before moving on. Maybe one other comment I make on these bins. Every spare bit of space was attempted to make use of. So when you see this tunnel here, that's kind of what we referred to it was tunnel. It was just an aisleway between here. I mean, easily walk through, no problem with that. But it wasn't, we're not talking an 8-foot ceiling. I don't think it was at high. It was just enough for a regular sized man to walk down. But then up over the top, really, this was part of bin number 5. Bin number 5 came up over the top of the tunnel and took over clear up into here. Same thing with 6, same thing with 7. That same effect happened over here in bin number 1, which was particularly a pain. It had a staircase in here. Sometimes, and this office. Back in the day, there wasn't an office on top of here. The seed would pile up in here, fill the room. It would land on top of the office, pile up on the air, pile up on the top of the staircase. And the staircase, of course, was protected. I'm talking in the bin. And the reason it was painful is because when you empty the bin out, that stuff doesn't just fall off on its own. You sure wish it did, but what you ended up having to do was get on a step ladder and get up there with a broom, a shovel, and there was just a ton more manual labor to clean it off of those areas. Dark and dusty. Always tried to wear a mask in there doing that, and you always wondered if you got it cleaned good enough to get it off of there. And up here, a lot of times this whole thing could be full of seed, and there wasn't an easy way to lift the hand scoop up there to roll it off of there. I may have done it one time just for kicks, but that thing was heavy to get up there, and you just didn't want to horse around that much up there. So you always had scooping in here. My favorite bin, I think, was bin number 2. And it's real simple. The reason why is there was no tunnel to deal with, and it was the closest to the cleaner. So, and it may not seem like much, but when you got to hike way back in here to add more seed, it just was more hiking you had to do all day long, back and forth. And so I think this was my favorite bin because there was no scooping, and you just take it straight out. Anyway, so that's kind of that, a little perspective on that. It seemed like there was something else I was going to mention, but I'm not remembering it at the moment. That's kind of the flow of how things went through the cleaner. And I guess we can refer to this again later if we need to. Apologize. It's practically like looking at just a picture the entire time instead of a video while listening to some guy jabber. Oh, look at that. Why does he park in the middle of the wheat? Why don't we just do a little relocation? How about that? Let me hop to my combine real quick. Make sure this is all in the up and up. Something I need to check, of course, is, I don't know that I'm working this equipment hard enough to do maintenance. I got to remember that. I think it's a seasons mod, or maybe it's another mod I have that added maintenance and repairs. So at some point in here, I'm going to need to do some maintenance on the machinery. Hopefully it waits till over winter. Down to 3.5 hours. Time keeps ticking away, but even with all the interruptions, I'm pleased we're getting her done. Getting her done. And maybe next go around, or as I earn money, I'll get a bigger combine so we can get through this process quicker. But like I say, I'm pretty fond of this little harvester, mainly because it's a hillside. And if there was another hillside combine that was a John Deere, something similar to what we had, I would take it in a heartbeat. And I would fix it to make sure it worked flawlessly, just like this one does. This is an outstanding mod. I don't know that I had to do hardly anything to it. It works straight out of the box. So helpful and nice to have a wand that does that. Anyway, let's see a couple pictures. Actually, let me get back on my trailer. Let's see a couple pictures of the cleaner. It's kind of, oh, this is the other end of the office. So they got a coffee maker and this is equipment that a lot of times gets run 24 hours a day. And generally, when that happens, this isn't no 8-hour shift. It's a 12-hour shift at least that you're in there. I'm trying to remember what we did back in the day. Was it 6 to 6 or 7 to 7? I don't recall the time exactly. We picked something. And I know there was a time period I did a number of night shifts, and I didn't mind night shift at all. It was cool, and kind of like I was explaining, there's a lot of labor involved, and so in the middle of the summer it could be pretty hot during the day, although it generally was a little bit cooler in the cleaner. But at night, in our area, we don't generally have hot nights, even through the hottest areas of summer. It could be, but most often, things cool down at night. So that was very helpful for, doing labor in the cleaner. Just another picture. This door leads to the cleaner. Got the good old bulletin board there, and yes, I blanked everything off so y'all couldn't see it. I have learned that when you put phone numbers in videos, and well, I don't know about videos, but if you put it in game, like Bullet Bill did on that one sign, that sometimes people call them. So the last thing I'd want to have happen is people to call the numbers that are on their board. So for their own privacy, I just kind of blanked all those out. Typical farm, yeah, just some other pictures in the office. I don't know why I took so many in here. Yep, I blanked it all out. And there's one page here. This really tickled me, when I saw it after so many years of not being on the farm. This piece of paper is still stapled to the wall. It's worn, it's tattered, but this is the same page we had back in the day. I didn't create this page, but the whole purpose of it uh, was was to show how many bags per hour are you running. And so what you would do is you would look at the clock, and I mean it's an imprecise science, of course. You would see how long it took to fill a 50-pound sack of seed. So I don't even know why they have it here anymore. If they're starting to do more bulk, it's kind of a moot point, but maybe they still do some bag product. I think back in the day when I was doing it, this worksheet was over by the bagging unit, and it was just a quick reference. You could always do the math longhand, but someone else had done it. So if it took 1 minute to fill a sack, well, then obviously you were doing 60 bags per hour. So then they had a range of times here. Oh, 1 minute. Oh, 1.2 minutes. That doesn't seem quite right. 1.83? Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, I get it. 20 minutes is 1/3 of a minute, or 20 seconds is 1/3 of a minute. So 1 minute, 20 seconds is 1.33. I see what they're doing. So suffice it to say, if it took 1 minute to fill a sack, you were getting 60 bags per hour. If it took 4 minutes, you were getting only 15. And it ran the gambit. If you were doing lighter, fluffier seeds, like some of the fine fescue, there was this variety called Penlon that was notoriously slow. You could spend many, many hours at this range here. It just took a long time to clean that stuff out, get it through the cleaner. And I remember many times of 15-hour or 15 bag per hour days, meaning it would take 2 hours to fill a pallet. So it just takes a long time to get through. I also remember many, many days on this end of the scale, upwards of 40 bags an hour. Let me tell you, you are hopping with all the manual labor we were doing in there. You were literally sweating all day. I think I was in the best shape of my life ever during this time when I'd be working in there. It really gave you a workout cardio to do it. You'd have enough downtime so that you wouldn't be breathing hard all the time, but you would pretty much always have a light sweat. going virtually all day long. So it was very laborious. But it just tickled me to see this page. It's kind of deja vu, brings back some memories. Let me go check combine. Yep, behaving so far. Let's see, can we make the corner? We'll just take a reflective pause here and make sure the combine's able to turn around. Let's go back up. I'll just stop him. Curve out of the way. Down here. And the combine will keep going on. Let's go back to our... Oh, look at that. How nice. It shut down our pictures. We were here. Let's just take a brief look kind of in the time remaining of some of the other areas of the cleaner. And like I say, there's any number. These pictures here, I think, are the most recent ones that I took. So when Bullet Bill would have been making this for Farm Sim 17, I think it would have been during 2017 itself. So this is what they would have had at this time. Oh, look at the ad. I guess there still are a fair number of sacks in here. This is kind of what a stacked pallet looked like in the warehouse. So kind of the storage area. Looks like they're putting more per pallet than what we did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers. So a few more pounds that we put on. I think we typically did 6 layers, but a lot of it depended on the type of seed, especially with the Penlawn. It was a light, fluffy seed, so the bags were very full, and you wanted to be sure you could stack these pallets in here at least 3 deep. So some of the other seeds were were heavier, more dense, and so fewer seeds filled a bag, and they hung a little bit looser on here, so maybe you could put more on the pallet. That's kind of what it looks like in storage. There's a picture of the staircase going up to their newer office up there. And again, at this time, they were no longer using that office out there. They had already built a new one kind of into their new shop building over there. And for a while, by the way, this area was used as their shop. As their machinery kept getting bigger, the other building seemed smaller and smaller. And so they did a lot of shop work in here too, on the concrete floor. And I remember working in here too on various shop projects over the years. If we were working on some combine parts or whatever, well, this was one building big enough that you could bring them in if you needed to work on them. So this particular day, maybe they were running something. I see a little product sitting in the bag, so perhaps they were running. We'll see in a moment. Yeah, here the clean seed chute, the door is over here to exit out to the concrete pad that we saw on the diagram before. This is a different forklift than what we had back in the day, but similar. Back when I did it, the clean seed chute was over here. And kind of like I said, it has been located over here before too. Apparently at this time it's right here. And today, I almost think they've relocated it yet again. I mean, they just continually make improvements and upgrades in here as there's a need. So you can kind of see what the bag system looks like. It's built in there with a 50-pound weight, and there's just markers that the bag filler has to follow. And I don't know, maybe there's some pictures I can show here. I don't see the sewing machine. I'm pretty sure I have one somewhere. And like I say, it's kind of a 2.5-story floor. So here's the second floor up here. There's mainly some catwalks. There's a half one up here as you get into the upper reach of the building to go out over the bulk bins. And the tunnel between the bins is kind of down this hallway here. We go to the next one. Yeah, that's a picture looking up at their old office. This is the lower office. This is a door we came through, to get into this particular area. Some extra stuff there. I have no idea why I took... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, for some reason I think I was taking a picture of this old gravity table. Part of their boneyard, I guess, is up in the rafters. I remember using this piece of equipment back in the day. Not sure why they conveyed seed using this, unless it was to make the output more even. The clean seat, I think, dropped on one end, and you could have used a screw auger, you could have used a conveyor, but this was a table that just rotated back and forth real gently, and it would just slowly shift the seed down until it dumped into the clean seed hopper on this end. It could be they were slowing it down just to make the feed more even as it came out, into the clean seed hopper. I really don't know. So far as I'm aware, its only purpose was conveyance. It didn't do any cleaning or anything like that. Just kind of funny that I found it sitting up in the rafters. No longer used. Another picture looking up into the old office. And well, maybe what I need to do, I just noticed we're over 30 minutes yet again, and our driver is parked in the field, getting in the way. So maybe what I need to do is close the episode down so I can keep things as tight as I can. We're making progress out here. So yeah, well, another 30 minutes down. Thank you so much for coming by and giving this a listen. I hope this is of interest to people. It's hopefully it's self-evident. This stuff fascinates me to no end. I really, really enjoyed my years up there, and I count my blessings more each year that passes that I was allowed to spend some time up there with the wonderful men that my uncles are, my grandfather, and it was just a wonderful place for a kid to learn how to work, and I'm very grateful. And would like to share some of that with all of you, so like I say, I hope this isn't boring anybody too bad. Looks like the next episode we get into, we'll be kicking off baling and we'll be done with the harvest. So until then, have a wonderful day and thanks for stopping by. Goodbye till the next time.